dialed in to Bucks and Brews, you might hear something you can use. Like tips on your cash or tips on the suds. You're gonna want to use the smarts of these stuff. Cause they know the brews, and they know the Bucks, and they know they can't help the stubborn fucks. So listen up, cause shit's not funny. And save yourself some beer money. Bucks and Brews.
Bucks and
Bucks and Brews.
Bucks and Brews.
All right, we're back again this week. We're going to talk about how to start a new business. Asked Dawn to join us since Dawn started a new business last year. We got Nick in a new location. Hopefully the internet's a little better up there. And we're hoping. And Mike's back. He's actually got a lot to add to this because he has been a big help in us starting a new business here. So I know one of the things Nick and I wanted to hit first off was, you have a couple choices. You can either open your own thing, which is what Dawn did, or you can open a franchise. Franchises, they have a set plan on how to do things. So there's sometimes less upfront work you need to do with those. But that, of course, brings upfront costs that you have to factor into that. Like Nick and I were talking earlier. Nick, tell us about McDonald's.
Well, so I, back when I was younger, I looked into, oh man, McDonald's, everybody goes there, everybody wants to own it. So, coming to do some research, it takes $1 million worth of liquid asset, right? So cash to, reserve to open a McDonald's. Even if you buy a McDonald's from somebody for cheaper, you have to, due to McDonald's policy, you have to have $1 million in liquid asset to open one. We talked about Subway, and you can open one for right around $40K of liquid asset. So every business requires a different qualification to take over a franchise from them. So, and they're all going to be usually a nominal fee to do so.
So before we get too far in, I know I'm just drinking water this week because I had some dental work done today and my mouth hurts.
I'm trying the new Smirnoff Red, White, and Blue. My first seltzer, 0 carbs. Trying to get my figure going. It's not horrible. It's not as great as the full sugar one, but I'm getting used to it, I think. So I grabbed a couple for tonight.
Mike?
I'm drinking a Jake's Vanilla Bean Porter, which is from Pawpaw Brewery, which is just about 20 minutes west of where I live. So nice local one.
There you go. Thanks for bringing the local business to the business venture here. Say, if I have it my way, I'm going to open the Nick Watkins wine and cidery. So I do have that as well, but not for sale, right? I can't legally sell alcohol.
You just have your friends over to drink it.
That's fact.
So Dawn put together a slideshow for us. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here and kind of go through that, and we'll stop, to discuss each area. So obviously we're talking about opening a business and how to start what we want to do basically from the ground up. So I'll let Dawn go ahead and start talking here, and we'll kind of jump in.
So there's a lot of things that need to take place in order for you to get from your idea to actually opening up your doors and having business take place. Some of these things are done in the order of which they're noted, and some of these things you're going to find yourself bouncing around because it really just depends on what business plan you're going with, what kind of business idea you have, and how much work you've already done ahead of time. We're going to go through each one of these items, and some of them are kind of grouped together. And all of these items can also be found on like the SBA's website, the SBDC's website, SCORE's website, which all of those are going to be listed on the last slide also. This isn't my list. This is a tried and true list, but that doesn't mean that this is like the only way. And you're going to find yourself going back and changing things quite a few different times. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, what I want to reiterate is, right, like when I started my business, I didn't even know about this list, so some of you guys might not be, you know, might not even know about this list, right? The SBA, again, we'll link that in the end. But it's a great way to start. So what we wanted to try to do in this episode was, some of us are running business, some of us are doing that, but we want to take it and make it a legal business in the fastest, most legal way possible. Right? Ideas are great, but now we need to make this thing without taking up so much time of doing all this research. People have already done that for us. So we're gonna try to make it so you guys can get into the business legally and run it under your own operation.
So one of the first things you want to do is, okay, so you've had this wonderful idea and you think that you want to open a business, but now you need to refine your idea. Do some conduct some market research, ask some friends, put a poll on Facebook, whatever it is that you are able to get other people's opinions, but without maybe necessarily giving away the idea that you're doing a business, because you don't want somebody else to jump on, especially if it's an idea that like doesn't exist. You don't want to give up so much information that somebody might jump on it. But you also want to make sure that you're not the only one out there that thinks that your idea is fancy. And it's kind of like the mom test where you're asking, your mom whether or not it's a good idea. They're always going to tell you, yeah, it's good. But it's asking other people whether or not they think it's good. Then it comes down to writing your business plan. And there are a ton of different foundations of how you can write your business plan, what it's going to look like, a lot of different tools. I mean, I have one here from Spring GR, a class that I took, and this Canvas is kind of the same as the Grow one and Score. But some of the key points on writing your business plan include like writing down who are your customers going to be? What kind of service are you going to try and offer to them? What's the problem that you're trying to solve? What is your solution? What are the benefits that your business is going to offer other people that they can't already do? Because you need to make sure that there's a reason why they want to come visit you. Why are they going to come see you versus somebody else? What is your message? How are you going to get your money? Do you already have some money down? Are you going to, go to the bank? Do you have friends? Writing all that down. Your distribution. How are you going to get either the product or the service or your idea out to other people? And not only that, but how are you going to receive those items? So if you're even mine's service-based, but there's still items within my business that I have to be able to have my hands on. So it's like figuring out all of the key details of, okay, so how am I going to get either the product or how am I going to sell the product or both? What are your startup needs? What do you have to start up right away? Is it a computer? Is it a delivery vehicle? Is it your website? And then again, goes back to cost, which is, a whole different ballpark too. Like, okay, so how much do you have to make every month in order to make your bills? And then how much can you make, going forward? That way you start having your 30, 60, 90-day goals of, okay, wow, if we started off really, really slow, here's how much we're going to make. And then, because you also want to make sure that before you jump into your business, that it's going to make you some money.
Yeah, and I think that's key. Right, we talked about it a little bit last episode, right? Writing down goals. And you just talked about 30, 60, and 90-day goals, right? Some of you guys are out there already doing a hobby as a business, right? You might be selling some things, Facebook, Marketplace. We talked about my neighbors making benches and doing that. I know I'm in a woodworking group and they're making bird feeders or squirrel feeders, right? And they're taking tables. There's some guys that are doing it just Facebook, and there's some guys that are actually selling their product to Lowe's right now, right? So how quick can you get in contact? And again, as you said, right, how quick are we going to make money? You talked about, hey, how much does it take to, or how much do I need to make my cost, right? For you guys, I mean, I'll have you talk about your business here in a second, exactly kind of like what it is. But I know for me, I started a t-shirt business, right? I didn't have rent. I only needed a certain few things to help me, right? I have a laptop that I'm doing this on. I went and
it was much lower than what some people's might be.
Exactly, right? So, and there's some people out there who are thinking like, hey, I'm going to do an IT business or things like that. So like overhead costs, could be very quick. And there's some people that are, I have a friend that opened a machining shop, right? And upfront cost is huge on that. So to know how quickly, I always figure out how quick I can get from red to black, right? I mean, how quick can I pay myself back? Money's our big topic here for us. And we want to make some money. So, David, I see you're wearing the business shirt. That's awesome.
I am.
So Don, David, I guess if you guys would tell us a little bit about some of the things for your business itself, like what are some things that if people are going to not do an at-home business, what are some things that they should look at and make sure is in their business plan?
I think one of the things we found out quickly, and like Don said, we have a service business. It's called Break Room Therapy. You come and you break stuff. So one of the things we looked at was, where would we want to be? All right. And Mike was very generous, took a day with me and drove all around the city of Grand Rapids looking for places. And a lot of the times Don said, yeah, this is retail. I don't think this works. Nobody's going to want to be cutting somebody's hair or selling a book and have us making a bunch of noise next door.
Right. So that goes back to knowing your business, knowing your market, knowing where you can be, because needing a industrial space versus a retail space, those are completely different worlds. Needing a medical office versus a retail can kind of mesh sometimes, but there still might be some licensing and regulations depending on your location. So really digging down and figuring out, okay, within my business, where do I need to be? What can I do? What can't I do? Was very key for us. Once we figured out that industrial was definitely where we had to go, that of course made this big pile of possible locations down to about this big of a pile.
Sure. Well, and I think you guys brought up a good point, right? Because I mean, I know I sent David a couple links for some spaces, right? I didn't know they needed industrial, but you guys talked about, hey, you don't want to be next to a barber or a salon or something, and making so much noise. So you guys took into consideration the people next to you, right? So like when I own as a landlord, I take into consideration, okay, how much are the people around them going to be, irritated? We know that, like I own it up and down, right? So the person walking upstairs, they're going to be loud. You're going to deal with that. So you guys, you took it upon yourself to say, hey, I don't want to bother everybody else that's going in here. A small thing about me, I moved out of my home office and tried to open a business about a quarter mile from my house, because it was really, really inexpensive. I paid honestly $80 a month for 120 square feet. I could do everything I needed, right? I could make my shirts. I could have alone time, but I never used it, right? So I was there, so in that business was an insurance company, a locksmithing company. There was people that were talking, like a financial advisor, and also a couple other things in that building. So it was like, they're running during the day. I ran most of mine at night, and it was open to me. I could have full access. So that's something to know, is will that landlord let you have access to it whenever you want? And I play music when I do my t-shirts, because otherwise the noise, the silence just kills me. So being courteous of the people around you and knowing. I know when David and I talked, it was just about you guys needed some more space type of a thing, compared to some of the things I was sending you. So storefront, let's call it, compared to what you guys actually did. So.
Well, I think that was a lot of our consideration. We knew there were certain things we needed. We needed tall ceilings. We needed a big open space. We didn't necessarily need a big office. A small office suits us just fine.
Yep.
Those certain things that we were looking for, we said, okay, these few places fit that. Let's go and start looking at them. And we had found a place out in Hudsonville, probably about 20 minutes from here, that we thought would work. Got out there. There were some structural issues. So they kind of, didn't want to deal with us, because we were going to tell them these have to be fixed. So they told us to go elsewhere, which was fine. And we ended up 7 minutes from our house, and it's decent rent, and it has really everything we needed to open up. Now, is it ideal for the long run? It's not ideal for the long run. I mean, we've already outgrown it. We've been open a year.
Which is huge.
Yeah, that's huge. We're looking to move. One thing you have to know when starting a business is you're probably not going to make any money for the first 2, 3, 4 years. They give you, is it 3 years with the IRS? 3 years with the IRS, you can lose money and they don't question anything.
Yeah.
Kind of expected.
Yeah.
Even with ours, we were making money, but you still have all that initial investment that, even when we started making money, it's not like we still weren't in the hole to some degree, depending on how you looked at it and where you took those numbers. But yeah, most businesses, even if you're starting like from just your house, you still have some kind of costs, whether it's time or inventory or whatever. It's going to take you a while to make the money. But if you push hard and, follow through, I mean, businesses do become successful. You just have to allow yourself that opportunity to realize it's going to take some time.
Well, yeah. I think, one of the, and don't quote me on this, guys, I forget, but I want to say it's something like 80% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years, right? It might be a little bit more, it might be a little less. I remember it's pretty close to there. And so, you guys opened about a year ago or so, and then COVID hits, right? So, we've had a couple talks about what you guys have done to get through that, but, it's tough to send your money out there and go do this thing. So, we're teaching, make a solid, sound investment in your business so that way you guys can be, that percent that stays around for a long time or grows into something bigger or, anything you guys want to do. So, I know when Dawn was talking about, hey, money, right? So they don't make money, you got to pay yourself eventually, right? So it's how quick can you put food on the table for your families, right? Starting at home, you can do it a little faster. You don't have the overhead. Now you move out, guess what? It takes a little bit more. So, you guys, it'd be awesome if you could do it out of your garage, but you can't. It's not allowed. So, I say,
Well, we didn't pay ourselves for quite a while because I didn't want to somehow pay us just to benefit us, but then somehow hurt the business. So at some point you have to pay yourself because, otherwise it's like, okay, what am I doing this for? But it's making those graduated decisions on, when and how much.
Well, we've been really lucky. We've had a lot of support from our friends. They've been fantastic. And Mike's one of the ones that's been fabulous because he works a lot of weekends for us for free. Him and I always joke that we're just sitting there for free because I don't draw a salary from the business. I'm free to work. Dawn always says, well, technically, your money's my money's your money. And she's right. But it's not like I'm getting a paycheck to go in. I'm just going in to help and kind of be, slave labor. And I'm fine with that because that's what it takes to get the job done. And Mike is more than happy to, if he's got nothing going on a certain Saturday and he knows we're going to be busy, he'll come up and help be slave labor with me. And that's been invaluable to us, honestly.
Yeah, and I honestly saying, we're going to talk about some networking and things like that. Mike's a network. You talk about yours is free. My wife doesn't work for free. I had an order of 250 T-shirts, and I do heat transfer. I don't do the screen printing. Screen printing is much faster. But I had a 250 order that was due in 2 days. I worked a full-time job, 10 hours a day. I didn't sleep, right? So I had my wife help, and I paid her good money to help me, but we got the job done. But without being able to rely on other people around me, I couldn't have gotten that job done. So, that's something to consider, right? Make sure that you guys give yourself a little bit of time to get away, but don't plan to get away for a few years at least, right? You're not going to go on vacation every day when you're running a business. So,
well, bring up the whole COVID thing and how you wanted time and now you got it.
Well, I was actually going to say, even though we are technically only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Some people are like, oh, so you only work 4 days a week. No, I work 7 days a week because every day, even if I'm not working a complete 8 or 9 hours, there might be 1 or 2, 3, 4 hours that you're still doing bookkeeping or grabbing inventory, or you're still doing something.
Yep.
I mean, there might be a day that literally maybe I do nothing, but those days are few and far between. What David was reminding me of is the fact that all of last year, even though I realized this was my idea, even though this was my baby and I loved opening my business, and yes, I asked for it, you know, and all those sentences that people say when you're just telling them that you're tired, I would have done anything for a day off last year, anything, because I'm just tired. I mean, I loved it, but I was tired. And then COVID hits and I'm like, okay, well, I didn't need this much time off. And then you're itching to go back to work. So, I mean, even being closed, there's still been things I've been doing in the background. I'm still driving around and getting inventory. That way, if and when we were able to be open, which luckily we can open it back up this week, but, you know, when we were ready, we'd be ready and still doing the bookkeeping and still, you know, doing stuff. But you do have to be careful what you wish for, because sometimes you get a whole bunch of time off and it's not the time that you want.
Well, yeah, and you know, one thing I know for me is, right, I was so used to a routine, right? I'd get up at 3 a.m, get out at 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then I'd work my business. And, you know, I could only get a certain amount of stuff done. Well, now I have, you know, I'm not working, as you guys know, and I have this time, and I didn't know what to do with my time. I've been in real estate for 10 years, and it's like, oh, okay, I can get so much more done. I can do so many more things. So it's like, you have to build that routine. You know, I'm so used to doing, you know, my bookkeeping at a certain day of the week, or, you know, a certain time. And so now it's like, oh man, I can still do this. You know, with you, I know, Don, you know, you guys are still marketing. You're out there putting, hey, still sharing, still making sure, your webpage is out there, and you're still going great. So I think that's a huge thing to know, that, right, we business owners work 7 days a week. You know, I mean, being a landlord, I self-manage. I'm on the clock 24/7, 365 days. Yeah, I can go away on vacation, but I still have to make sure I set somebody up into place to do that for me. There's always going to be an issue. So, David, you have that slide?
Yep. Oh, hang on a second. We're admitting somebody new. That's a great name.
I'm so glad they're joining with audio here in a second. I'm excited, but sorry. And what I want to talk about, I guess, is if you guys have questions kind of after this, if we don't hit on the exact subject that you're looking for, reach out, send a comment. You know, on YouTube, send it to us on Facebook. We're all sharing, you know, share it out there. So, sorry. Yeah, so we talked about your business plan. We'll talk about where you can find ways to find a business plan, right? We're going to link to those websites, as we said at the end. There's going to be kind of a rough layout of a way to start you. If you don't know what a business plan is, if you need ideas, right? It's not just, hey, I'm going to do this and this is how. There'll be a walkthrough and things like that. So.
And then we get to your business finances and your business structure. Let's be honest, no matter how big your business is, you're going to need some kind of money, whether it's money that you can just come up with on your own, or whether it's money that you're going to have to sit down and figure out how much you need from the bank. The one thing that I definitely can stress to you, if nothing else, is to estimate high. You're going to have things come up. You're going to have bills that you weren't expecting. You're going to have, you know, oops that comes up. Just, you know, don't plan like I only need X dollar amount. Whatever you think your X is, go above that. And having a plan for how you're going to come up with your expenses is, you know, also key. Also, then when you start getting into your business structure, figuring out how your business structure is going to be, whether you're an LLC, whether you're an S Corp, whether you're an individual, all of those things will play into how your personal taxes and your business taxes will work. And, you know, there is a way to actually read through each one of those business entities on the SBA's website. It will break down and show you which one will work best.
I like the fact Don brought up the LLC versus S Corp, because when we originally opened, There were thoughts on what way should we go, whether we should go with an LLC or an LLC filing as an S corp. And honestly, my feeling is if you're not making significant money, which I'm going to say significance over 60,000 a year. Some people say it's over 100. There's no real tax advantage to being an S corp. Stick with an LLC. It's cheaper. It's easier. Taxes are easier. If you get to the point where you're making a lot of money, then by all means, file as an S corp. There's a lot of great tax advantages out there.
I put a line on hold against yours, but I'm not.
Sorry, we're getting some background noise.
Hi, Scott.
Hi there.
I think that's a good thing. You know, one thing to know is you don't have to necessarily stay in what you first start out with, right? So, you know, if you right, like you guys said, hey, you initially went to LLC and S corp, and then you realized, hey, I'm just going to go to LLC. I started out as an individual, you know, and then everything was my name, and then I bought a bigger property and went into an LLC for my T-shirt company, right? It was all just me. So I've had people want a partner, and right, that's a partnership. So I know that when I buy my 60 unit, right, I'm going to have to partner, and that's going to be a different thing. But I can always, right, if I want to buy my partner out, I can always go to a sole proprietor or LLC or something like that. So I think that's the biggest thing is if you get bigger, you know, if you get big and do all that, then yeah, right, we're at that point where you can flip between them. So not things are set in stone on this. Don't let it be too much of a headache. You know, there's always people you can ask questions, right? I guess David and I both agree, right? LLCs are going to get you exactly what you need for most 90% of small businesses, 95% of small businesses, things like that, right? I mean, if you're starting a car company, yeah, it's a different thing. If you're starting, you know, a huge corporation, medium corporation, you know, but you know, so I think most of this is the smaller businesses, things that you're going to start up. So,
well, if you're going to, we said this before, you're probably going to lose money that first year. And if you're losing money, there's no problem with being an LLC because you're not making enough money as an S corp anyways. So start that way. It's simple paperwork. Dawn did it herself. She didn't have any help. I know Nick, when he set up his LLC, he had help because he didn't know how to do it and didn't want the hassle.
I just say, you know, I had mentioned it to a friend of mine. We were in a business, a real estate meeting, and they're like, "Oh, do you have an LLC?" And I was like, "Nah, I never learned how." And he's like, "Hold on, I have a lady that literally sets up 30 of them for me a year. He buys properties and puts each one into them." And he goes, "Hey, just reach out to this girl and she'll do it." And I get a phone call one day and she goes, "What do you want your LLC to be?" Right? And I just quickly was like, "This is what I want it." And so, you know, next thing I know, I get paperwork in the mail. So I didn't do anything until the next year where I had to refile my LLC, you know, make sure that it's still it. And I somewhat learned how to go on and click and pay with my credit card. I'm pretty good at that, you know, just swipe, there it is. So, you know, really, if you talk about it, people, there's always somebody that's been there and done that. So go to a small business and be like, "Hey, how do I do this?" So.
So then you go to register, apply, and brand your business. Picking out your business is very important as far as your name. It's going to be your whole brand. But before you go and spend money on your website and your advertising and, you know, getting everything with your logo and your trademark on it, you're going to want to make sure that that name is available. Do a quick search on your state website. I mean, ours here in Michigan is, you know, the LARA's website. There's a business entity search. There's a government site that you can look through on irs.gov. You just type in the business name and it will tell you if somebody else already owns that business. You can also do things as simple as going to Google. Now, if nobody has the one name that you've picked out for your business, then lock that baby down. And that's just simply, as you know, as far as, you know, buying that website domain, registering it with the state, registering it with the IRS for your EIN number, you know, getting everything secured. Because if you pick your name and you know that's what you want, but you haven't taken the steps to actually lock down your website, somebody else is going to buy that website because that's unfortunately what some people do. And then you're going to have to either change your name, or you're going to have to buy that from them. And they're not going to charge you the same as if you had just, done it yourself.
David, we went through that. So fun fact about me, I am a magician, for fun, hobby. Right? Like I don't know much about internet websites, things like that. And so as you guys can tell, I do things on phone, but I went over to Don and David's, years ago. And I had looked up my company. It's called, Magic Memories. It was open and clear. And then what I did was I went kind of out of the wrong order. And then I went and got my DBA as Magic Memories. And then David's like, hey, help you build the website. And then we go to log into Magic Memories, and guess what? The website's already bought. And so we're like, oh, now what do we do? So, David and I, we made a free website. He helped me with it. But if I grew that business and did more, I would have had to purchase the website and do other things. Honestly, I kept it as a hobby, just small around local, and decided to go word for word because my website I wasn't going to go global with it, right? I knew I had different things on the horizon. My income was going to be real estate in the end. So I wasn't going to grow that and pay the big money that people wanted for me to buy the website. So, that's a real life thing that happens, So make sure you get the other things first, and then register that business name. I guess that's the biggest tip that we can probably give you is buy the small things. They're cheaper to do them early, and then go register that business name. Do the research, make sure it's open, get all the website, get all the other stuff, then go register it. So.
Well, then goes the banking. Setting up your bank account for your business is very important. You are going to want to make sure that you separate your business finances from your personal finances. You want to have a nice clean separation between what you have for your business and what you have for your home. But to make your business banking account, it's not, it can be, but it can also be a fairly simple thing, depending on your financial institution. You need your EIN for sure. That's your business identification number. You need a license copy if your business requires certain licenses, and then your business entity authorizations, your documentation from the state that shows, or actually from the IRS that shows if you're listed as an LLC, corporation, whatever. Because, for example, let's just say I wanted to go open up a bank account, but then there's 3 or 4 other partners on the business. Well, the bank can't make a business account for the business for me unless we also have the other ones listed. So that's where having your business entity is very important to show to the bank so that they know that, you have that authorization to make that business account. If possible, my suggestion, and that doesn't mean that it's the only way, but my suggestion is try and find a local bank. They're going to be smaller. They're going to want to work with you more. They're going to have that independent little connections with you, and they might be willing to do a little bit more for you than what a big corporate bank will. And that's not to say that big corporate banks won't help you, but I just know that I looked at 2 different banks, and the smaller one did work with me a lot more than what a bigger bank did.
Well, and I find that in even in real estate, right? Like Chase will lend me on a house, but they don't want to lend me on an 8 unit, right? They only want to do a 60 unit, right? They only want bigger money. We'll get into what a portfolio loan is later, right? But my small banks are doing that, portfolio loans. My big bank won't. They're not going to lend me. They only want to do Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, things like that. So honestly, and building a relationship with small business, I agree with you 100%. That is key, right? Small businesses want to help the small areas. That's it. I know one of the reasons, I guess, why I didn't have an LLC originally for all my properties was fear of messing up, I guess. Like with the money thing, you say keep money separate. Honestly, get an accountant that knows kind of what they're doing a little bit, a lot, right? And so don't worry about, hey, if I take money out of here to pay for gas, right? I mean, you have to itemize that as, hey, this was a personal payment withdrawal, and you paid yourself you paid yourself out of the business and then put it into there. So I didn't want to have to buy something and then have my LLC fold and get sued for everything. With the business, if one property has this messed up and I use this card for this, it's just a matter of it's just a matter of writing it out in financing. So I think that's a big key is, don't worry about the banking itself, right? If you have a good accountant, they'll help you all the way through it.
Correct.
Well, I know with one of the banking things we had is we ended up with two banks, because when you're looking for a bank as a business, banks charge you on how many transactions you have in a month. So, for example, we looked at Lake Michigan Credit Union, which is, in town here, and they give you 20 free transactions a month. That's it. We ended up going with United Bank of Michigan, who we have personal accounts with, because they give you 200 transactions per month. Well, with our business, the scheduling system we have sends payments daily to our accounts, which, that's going to use up 30, 31 transactions a month right there. So we ended up going with an internet bank for it to send those payments to, that is free to use, no transaction limits. It just dumps the money in there. And then, once a week or, once every couple of weeks, we just transfer money from one bank to the other.
Well, and that was as AZLO. And yes, they still require the same documentation that other banks did, since it is a business bank account. But like David said, the advantage was, it didn't matter if I was giving them 200 transactions in even one day or only 2 transactions for the whole month.
Now, I guess just to clarify, what is a transaction? So if I go mow a lawn and I carry a square, right, or something like that, that's an incoming transaction. Now, if I use my card to go buy gas for my lawnmower, is that a transaction there?
Transaction. Anything you do on your account.
Okay.
In and out. You write a check. You receive a check. You receive payments.
Okay.
Transaction.
Sure. So yeah, income and outgoing. Okay. So, and that's something, to look into, especially in a business like your guys's. So, right. I mean, if you guys are packed, you're going to have, 40 people a day. That's a lot of transactions. So that's good to know. That's great advice.
So this goes back to this is the last key, but not necessarily the last thing we're going to talk about, but using your resources. We talked about a business plan, and, there are different ways. One way that you can find 2 ways you can find a business plan is go to SBA, which is a Small Business Association, and their website is noted there, and also SCORE. It's also a large network of business volunteers. Those are business professionals who, after working so many years, they just want to give back, kind of like what Nick and David do on a weekly basis with finances. SCORE is a large network of those places. Both of them have on there a business marketing tool that you can use. They do look similar, but there are some differences there. The other thing you can do is go to the U.S. Small Business Chamber of Commerce. They have, different options too. They even talk about, how do you open a business? What do I need? How do I make a business plan? Then, which I was going to list the ones I use, but since I know that not everybody that listens to this is in Michigan, look at your resources locally. Look at your Chamber of Commerce, look at your business groups. Here locally, we have the Small Business Association of Michigan. We have GROW, which is Grand Rapids Opportunities for Women, which obviously works for me, not the other 3 of you. But I'm sure that there's some men ones too. Look up, we have Spring GR. That's just a group of people that are trying to help entrepreneurs. So do a Google search on business entrepreneur help by me or business resources near me. Use the website, see what's going to be out there. I didn't know that Spring GR existed before I started making the business. I didn't know that Start Garden existed. I didn't know that Grow existed. But once I found them, they were valuable pieces of resource. The last thing I have on there is network. I've gone to so many Small Business Association of Michigan little meet and greet. Well, now they're going to look different with, Zoom meetings and stuff, but just going out there and meeting, because you never know, say the 4 of us were meeting. I never know how I can help Nick or Nick can help me. I never know how Mike can help me or I can help him. talking to people so much. Plus, if they like your idea, they could be talking to somebody else, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I just ran into this guy, Nick, and he does this, this, and this. And then that's just free advertising for your business. Also, the more you start talking to people about your business, the more confidence you're going to have about it. And the better people can believe you and they can buy what you're saying because you have that confidence and that faith and trust in your business, the more other people will believe in you too. And it becomes easier the more you talk about it. And those like Small Business Association of Michigan, they even have like owner to owner meetings. Like it's no sales pitch. They're not allowed. It's like just a bunch of owners just trying to grow with each other. Because as much as I can talk to all of my friends about my business woes, unless they're business owners, they're going to, understand and they're going to, care, but they're not going to get it. But when you talk about your business problems with like-minded individuals, you're going to learn a lot more than what you thought. I mean, I thought, oh yeah, I'm just going to go and introduce myself. I won't get nothing. I got so much out of those networking meetings.
Yeah, I think that's that's huge. I go to a lot of real estate networking meetings, a couple times a month, and right, you never know who's gonna randomly show up. I mean, when my first real estate one, I went to, I thought everybody there was gonna own 1 million properties and just be this big guru and help me get to wherever. And at the time, my first one, I probably only owned 3 properties, and come to find out, I had more experience and knowledge than I'd say 75% of the people that were there. A bunch of people didn't even know where to start and things like that. So that was growing. There's a big joke at my job that Nick knows everyone, right? I mean, honestly, I know so many people that do so many different things, right? I told you I'm a magician. So there's people talking about, oh, hey, I want to entertain for my kid's party. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I know a magician. Or somebody's like, hey, I need a heating and cooling guy. I just take out my phone and I'm like, here, this is a great person that works for me. They show up on time. They do the job, right? And like, that's worth so much. Having somebody that has dealt with somebody before that they trust and rely on. Right, I know, like with Dawn's company, right? People are like, oh, I need a business party idea, and so I'm like, hey, here, go check out them. They can hook you up with a party, small groups, Christmas parties, and so I just send them, right? Like, she has a great way for people to get out and do great things. So, honestly, there's always people looking for anything and everything. Facebook is huge for me. There's always somebody looking for lawn mowing. We talk about how I do side job things, and it's, hey, Nick, I posted one time that I'm going to go pick up brush, and then all of a sudden I got 3 Facebook things. Hey, this person said you came and picked up brush, or hey, I seen that you posted that you picked up brush, and then I'll become like the brush guy. I don't even know. So, next thing I know, I'm hauling trees and stumps and things. So, really, it's when you don't know who knows who in this world, right? There's always somebody that knows the next person. So talk to everyone, tell them what you do. That's the biggest key that we can give you is network and tell everybody about what you do.
Well, and look into all of the different groups that you find that are out there, because if you make a connection and you're like, they can't really offer me anything, it never hurt to look into that connection. I know that one time I took a class up at Grow, like I said, Grand Rapids Opportunities for Women. They had a Facebook class, and I'm like, okay, I use Facebook all the time. But sure, I'm not for a second going to pretend like I know how to run Facebook for a business. Running a Facebook account, which also is free, so use your free resources. Even if you're not into social media, make a Facebook page, make a Instagram page, make a Twitter page. I run Facebook and Instagram. David runs Twitter, but it's a free resource. Well, I quickly learned on the back end of taking that class that there's so much more in the back end of Facebook that I would never have known. It's kind of creepy even. Like, it tells you how to do an ad where specifically it will only have that ad shown by people that, aren't your friends and don't have any common interests. That way you can get to new markets of people. And I would never have known those things. And it was a free class that I learned so much. And then when everything hit the fan with COVID, some of those connections that I'd made at some of those networking events, they reached out to me and said, hey, you know, did you see this loan came through, or did you see this grant came through, or hey, Dawn, I have during this time I've been drinking, you know, who would have thought people were drinking, but do you take old glass bottles? And those were just connections that I had made at those networks. So you never know, even that one little thing that you go to, you never know how it might pay off down the road. So be open to pushing yourself to things that maybe aren't comfortable.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that are watching are, you know, you might be a little bit older, right? And I mean, I know Dawn and David, you guys have a daughter who's a little bit younger, you know, I mean, but hip. And so if you guys couldn't do Twitter or Facebook, right? I mean, you can hand it off to her and she could market and do all this. So it's not something that you have to absolutely do, and it's not something you have to hire for, but it's something that people in your family who love you are willing to help you out, right? I mean, yeah, there's always people that are willing to help. Reach out to them and find out.
Well, and again, you know, we talk about people that are invaluable in business. I mentioned Mike, which I'm going to ask him to talk about in a minute. You know, we have other friends, Jim and Wendy, who pitched in and come and helped work for us. I got former ball players of mine that have come and worked for us, you know, and they're willing to do those things because of those personal relationships we've built. And, you know, I think probably other than Dawn and I, the person that spent the most time working at the business is Mike, because, you know, if he doesn't have his kids and he doesn't have anything going on a weekend, hey, I could, you know, sit here and do something around the house, or I could go up and help them. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and that's basically, you know, what I did is, you know, when they were early on, you know, like Dave mentioned, I drove around with him for like an entire day. And yeah, you know, nothing, there's a part of me that hoped that one of the things we found together would have been the final location, but that didn't work out. But again, I think mostly because at that point we didn't know exactly what was being looked for. You know, we saw mostly, you know, your general commercial, like strip mall type locations, you know, a few industrial locations, but they definitely, you know, were out there. You know, it had been a lot harder for them to have the convenience of somebody calls and says, hey, I want to be there in 15 minutes. Can you be there? And now they can just do that. Yeah, you know, I think it's important to just support, you know, friends and everything. And I know one of Dave and Don's goals is to expand beyond the Grand Rapids area. And, you know, I've wanted to too, you know, kind of learn what they do, because if they ever want to expand down to where I live in the Kalamazoo area, you know, I'd like to be a part of that, you know, whether it's, you know, a 50% partner, or maybe I just open my own franchise of break room therapy.
Well,
You know, it's things you can learn.
I'll change.
You know, and one thing, so Mike, David, and myself, we got together this week for a great YouTube outing, we'll call it. We got to go hit a round of golf. And one thing we want to bring up that I think Mike brought up was be very cautious with multi-level marketing.
Yep.
Yes, they're going to tell you that it's your own business. Yes, they're going to, you know, you own it. You do this. No, I mean, honestly, everybody's gotten into it. You know, I think it's 1 out of every 3 people are going to get into multi-level marketing at some sort. I think that's why the number when we talked about failing is like 80% of small businesses fail. It's because, right, they're counting all these independent business owners or whatever, you know, IBOs or whatever these guys are going to call it. You know, they don't sell. You know, I mean, they're going to make you sell to your friends and do all this, and then you have, you know, people aren't going to go to the extremes to network to grow an actual business itself. So we as a 3, I guess, take a stance that multi-level marketing, it's an opportunity. If you want to try it, that's on you, but we don't look at it as an actual small business, right? We want you guys to be wary. None of, you know, None of them have actually. I don't think I know a single person that's a multi-millionaire that I'm best friends with from multi-level marketing. I don't think David knows a multi-level marketer that's making millions a year. I don't think Mike knows a multi-level marketer that's making millions a year. They're going to show you pay stubs from somebody. They're going to get you hyped. They're going to do all this great stuff in life. And, you're going to spend your money and you're going to get in and you're just going to, it's not going to feel like your business, your idea. Anything about it is going to be yours. So we want you guys to be cautious on all those. We if you have questions of if something is going to be a multi-level market, throw it down in the comments. We'll we'll tell you to stay clear or give you our best advice. But the way we see it is that's not a small business, right? You don't own that thing. That company owns you, and you're a salesman for them trying to move product, right? So
And I actually I made the choice to join one. I would say it was over 20 years ago. Well, maybe less. No, it wasn't that long ago. It would have been maybe 15 years ago. And I joined because a friend of mine gave me the spiel. No friend that happens to be on this call. So I joined. I thought it would be an interesting thing to do, but I think from an experience perspective, if you're going to join one, you've got to join something you're really, really passionate about. Like if you're really, really passionate about, like the ones that sell candles and other things like that, if they're passionate about do it, realize that unless you're in that first few hundred people that get into it, you're not going to make this isn't going to replace your income. Sure. It's a fun way, if you find an area you're passionate about, like Pampered Chef is an example. If you're really passionate about cooking and cooking supplies and things like that, become a Pampered Chef consultant. But Pampered Chef is not a small business. Pampered Chef is thousands and thousands of people worldwide. A small business is, I think it's there's like definitions of it's under a certain number of people. Sure. Amongst all different locations of your business.
Yeah, it's funny, because I said 1 out of every 3 people. So my wife and I got into multi-level marketing to help a friend out. It was called Monavi. Come to find out they were lying. They actually went to court, a bunch of lawsuit. I pretty much got my money back for buying in. Only a few years later, my upline is actually in my. He just became part of one of my real estate things that I'm the admin for, and I was, I had a little chuckle inside. I'm like, this is going so well for so many years. Why are you here? But no, I agree because I joke with everybody all the time about how I want to get into Pampered Chef because one of my dreams is to be a pitch man, right? Like I want to. So I think that's great. Get up and present a product in front of somebody. Billy Mays, I think, was the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be until I get into it. But, no, really, but so there's 2 of us out of the 3 people that are here, or 4, and
I did Tastefully Simple and I did Stampin' Up.
Yeah, so, right, I mean, they're easy to get suckered into, they're easy to get into and things like that, but just understand that it's not going to be a business that you're gonna care about as much as something like, let's say, break room therapy, where you guys came up with it. You put your actual real money into it and things like that.
You got to be careful because if you get into too serious of one, you do get a lot of pressure from the people above you to either bring new people in or make sure you're spending whatever amount of money you have to spend. And sometimes that's what you get into. You have to spend X amount of money per month for the person above you to make their money. Right. And they will pressure, and they won't call it pressuring, but they want to make their money.
And I wish my father-in-law was on this call. I know when I met, they had said that they were in another company, a large corporate, or a large multi-level marketing, and they were making some money, right? They were doing fine. But one day their upline told them, hey, you need to skip church, which at the time they were really into. You need to do this because we're going to make this money this month, and so it. Again, when you can't make the decision on whether you skip church, somebody else is making that decision for you on what you're doing, what day.
Yep.
That's not owning your business, right? That's owning somebody else's business for you. So again, if you can't make that, I mean, granted, if I make the decision to let water squirt out of a shower for a day, that's me to fail. That's my choice, right? If somebody else tells me to go do it, I'm working for them. So if I get to make the choices and I get to make the success or the failure, that's my business. So, I mean, and those things, we've seen too much failure. We see too much not ownership of actually what you're doing. So,
And I got that a lot with the one I was in, is it was a lot of like, don't buy a new car without consulting with your upline. Don't buy, a house. Don't move without consulting, Don't get into a relationship without consulting. I mean, it was like everything. It was all about, are you doing something that's going to benefit them and not necessarily you?
Yep, and that's what we see is, they'll try to say, it's funny because when I talked about Montevideo and the guy over there, right, him and his wife were like, oh, we're going to be best friends. And once I stopped, right, I didn't do what they wanted. I haven't gotten a phone call from them, right? I haven't gotten a single thing. I seen him on Facebook and I was like, oh, I'll reach out and I'll say, hey, how's things going? And I'll do that. But they don't care about who I am. And that's the part that I guess hurts, right? Is you build this fake business, this fake friendship just to get what you want. And that's not who any of the three of us are about, right? We want you guys to succeed in something that you take pride in, something that you want. So again, right, I support a lot of friends in these multi-level marketings, right? My wife does her nails. There's a local one out in Door, kind of by you, David, where they make all natural stuff and they sell product, but you can, if you want, build it as a multi-level marketing, but otherwise, right, it's just building product and things like that. So we support.
And I'll do the same thing. I'll buy things from my friends, like if they're Pampered Chef or Tastefully Simple, or there's one I know that does organic, like cleaning supplies and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I own some silver lined cloths or something like that.
Yeah.
And my wife said will, take the smell away from whatever. Oh yeah, those are Norwax, right? Yeah, I say there you go.
I think that's the one. Yeah.
Yep. So.
On your business plan, for example, I had the idea of making our business on last year's Super Bowl Sunday. From that day until the day we actually opened our business, I busted butt. You have to, once you know that this is what you want to do, treat your business like a business from day one. Do your, own it, love it, research it, spend time working on it. You don't don't wait to treat it as a business when you finally open. Treat it as a business from day one. Doing your research, talking to your friends, writing things down, writing your business plan 9, 10, 11, 12 times. And take ownership of it. It is your business. Unlike the ones that you guys were just talking about where somebody else has come up with a plan and said, hey, this is how it has to work. You're in charge of that destiny.
So Mike said something earlier that I want to key in on. So he said you have to have a passion for what you're doing. Him and I are huge Parks and Recs fan. Okay. And there's a point where Tom decides to pitch a business and Ben gives him this transactional holding company business. And they go into the investor, and instead Tom pitches a restaurant because that's what he was passionate about. Even though restaurants fail more than any other business out there, at the end of the day, if that is your passion, that's what you have to go towards, because then you're going to put more into it. Like, I enjoy my job. I have a really good job. It pays me really good money. I like doing it, but I can't say I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about coaching. I'm passionate about, throwing on my Star Wars suit and running around and taking pictures. I'm passionate about helping my wife's business succeed. My regular job, it's a job. That's what it is. And they pay me to come to work. Nick will say the same thing. His regular job pays him to come to work. He's not necessarily passionate.
Going on that point where you're trying to, basically say, if you're going to take all this time, energy, effort to make a business, make it one that you love. That, you're going to be able to be the number one spokesperson for it, and that people can believe you and, they buy it. Because if you're just doing it because you want to make some money, it's not going to work that way. Make sure, it's something that you're passionate about.
Yeah. And saying, I think that's a big key is if you're just doing it for the money, right, that be a passive investor at that point, right? I mean, support somebody else's dream because they're going to have the passion to do it. I know we talked a little bit about some business plan stuff. There is guidelines out there, right? As Dawn said, she wrote it 9, 10, 11 times. Your business plan can change, right? I mean, there's times where, even you guys, right? Mike even said it, right? You guys are looking at maybe expanding already. You're 1 year in, you're going through COVID, right? I mean, who could have seen all this happening? And you're still like, hey, this is a great idea. We need to expand. We need to get this thing going. And so that could have been, I don't know where expansion was in your guys' business plan, right? I don't know if it was 3 years, 5 years, 10 years out, but man, this thing is happening in a year, right? I mean, right. So looking for that next thing. So I think, just know that when you write a business plan, it doesn't have to be set in stone, but it's a written thing to get your butt moving, right? You're more, there's a better chance that you're going to reach that goal if you write it down every day. Every day I wake up and I ask myself, now, hey, what am I doing for my business? Before this call, I was out, mowing grass and weed whacking and doing all that. It's something to catch up on my business, right? I mean, and then every time that there's a house for sale, I look at it, right? I don't care if it's a house out of my budget. I don't care anything. Like, I want to run the numbers. I want to make sure that I'm still trying to expand my business. Once in a while I'll throw it on Facebook. Hey, anybody know anything of a landlord that, are you moving out? Tell me, so that, because I know that landlord's going to be looking to maybe sell at that point. So, I started real estate in a completely different realm than where I am now, right? I started real estate to pay my mortgage. That's really it. I was like, hey, how can I get somebody to pay this and the other mortgage, right? And so we'll talk about that in a different episode, more about real estate. But now it's turned into such a passion about the people that I have. I care about everybody. Like, I want to be the best person I can be for my tenants and still run a business, right? I'm not the guy to cut corners, anything like that, right? Everybody needs a good place to stay, and I want to be the one to offer that. That's my business plan, is offer a great place at a great price. So, honestly, like, keep it, right? You guys are killing it with your business. I mean, expanding within a year is huge for a small business. I mean, and with Mike talking about wanting to be down there, you got people talking already all over the place about, hey, we want to go here, and the sky's the limit for, as long as there's an industrial place. Now that we know it's industrial, as long as there's a building out there, you guys can do this thing, so I think that's huge.
Well, like the business class I went to with Springs ER, their business plan model, which I know doesn't show up very well in here, but like this business plan has all these different squares, but they taught us, like, don't write it in with pen, like use sticky notes or laminate this, because it's gonna be changing every day. And like, they could not stress enough, your 30, 60, 90 changes every 30 days. So you're making those goals, but when you don't hit that 30 goal plan, okay, now it becomes your 30-day plan for the next month. And that 60-day plan, oh, you've already hit it. Now let's come up with some new things. So it's always adapting, always changing, always looking at what can we do differently? How can we advance? How can we change or when COVID happens, how can we switch? We were one of the businesses that we could not open our business when we're not able to open, where some businesses like distilleries, they started making hand sanitizer. So your business will always be ever changing, and you have to be open to that game plan, or have to be okay sitting back in the background and doing background stuff. So it's not going up like, this is my business. You have to be willing to adapt and change.
Sure. And saying that's a great point, right? Like, I mean, distilleries started making sanitizer. You know, I know I have a lot of friends that own quite a bit of businesses. You know, I just got a text that my buddy that owns a heating and cooling company is going to be next door installing an air conditioner. That was, you know, I became the salesman for that, right? He talked about it, said, hey, my girlfriend wants AC in the house. And so, right, but he's still able to work. He's still able to do this, but he doesn't have a marketing team. So I'm out here, you know, doing this. You know, honestly, and I think you brought up a great point, Dawn. That hit me really well. The 30, 60, 90. Once you hit that 30 days, man, that what used to be 60 days becomes your new 30, and then you're restarting at you do 90 at that point, right? Like everything moved up, and just talking about that was amazing, right? Like thinking about it, like, you know, everybody always talks about what's your 5-year plan, what's your 10-year plan, and then people just forget that, hey, once you hit your 5-year, you need a new 10-year. You need to think bigger. You need to keep going with this. And I think that was huge, honestly. That just hit me. It's like, all right, I need to focus on, hey, where am I going to be? What am I going to do? You know, because I tend myself to think, hey, this is my next goal, and that's all I focus on, and then set the next goal, right? So, you know, I'm working on buying a property, and it's like, oh, I could be doing other things in between there to get to that point. So that's really awesome. I appreciate that share. Hey, I wanted to take a couple seconds, and Dawn, could you tell us? I want to give a shout out because I know they've done so much for you. With Spring GR and Start Garden, they've done so much for you in your business. I know that you posted on Facebook. One of those two groups even came to your house and did some amazingness just to show support. So I guess, can you tell our watchers and our listeners kind of what they did and show proof of why you need to talk to some of these companies?
Well, Spring GR is just a group of really amazing people that want to try and see entrepreneurs get, you know, from their dream to an actual reality. There's classes that you can take. They offer business coaching. They offer mentorship. They've kept in contact with me during this whole time of COVID. They reached out to everybody that has been through their classes, and they said, you know, how can we help you be okay? Because if you're okay, then hopefully your business will be okay. They came up with a bunch of funds. I'm not really sure exactly where all those funds came from. Some of it was their own business operation money, because obviously their business operations aren't the same funds as what they were when they were open. So they took some of those costs. They also found somebody willing to do a donation, and they went around to all of us, and each of us got a different varying amount of a grant, you know, which was huge, because we were starting to, as successful as our business has been, when your business is not open, but you still have all these bills that you have to pay, but no money coming in, you start going, okay, we've got enough money till X day, and then it starts getting scary. Well, they gave us grants, but even without the money, just, you know, keeping those connections, checking in with us and seeing how we're doing. Start Garden has been doing the same thing. Every Wednesday night, we have a Zoom meeting that we've just been going through, and just we'll call it a venting session, for lack of better words, where you just like, hey, what challenges are you facing? How can we help? What can we be there for you? Who do you need us to get you in contact with? Or do you just need somebody to listen so, you know, we can understand? So making those connections and reaching out. I mean, I know that in my area here in Grand Rapids, I have Start Garden and Spring GR, but I have to believe that wherever you're listening, well, I mean, I don't have to believe, but I hope to believe that wherever you're listening, maybe there's those kinds of entrepreneur groups too that, you know, are all their biggest passion in life is just to see you succeed. And they will do whatever they can to help you there. And Chris, who's my business coach with Spring GR, her answer is always like, well, if she can't figure it out, she'll find somebody that will. And that's been huge. we are definitely where we are right now. I mean, I've done a lot of hard work myself, but a lot of what I've learned has been using those resources.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I personally haven't used them, right? But I have a mentor, right, who, and I think you said the exact words, right? They want to see you succeed, right? There's people out there who have been successful and understand what it takes and how hard it is, and they want to see you succeed. And that's the biggest key to me is there's people in this world that believe in you that much less than what you believe in yourself, right? Like, I mean, honestly, like, believe in yourself so much more, and there's people to support you along the way. I think it's great that, like, the especially in Grand Rapids here, we are blessed to be around so many businesses with great entrepreneur abilities. So, I follow a guy on Twitter and YouTube who he's all about the small business. He teaches. TikTok's a thing. I don't use it, right? But like he teaches these kids how to like get there, and he's like drive and get there. Honestly, so I own 4 of his pairs of shoes. He created a shoe line with K Swiss. His name's Gary V. Right? But like just the motivations that he gives me, just off of, hey, this is where you are. And he hasn't talked to me personally or anything, but it's like the small motivations that I get from him is like, man, that's awesome. I'm going to give back a little bit, right? Like I'm going to support just as much as I know the next person is going to support. My mentor, right? It took me, I owned however many properties until he finally sold me, a bigger unit, because he believes that I'm going to succeed. People got mad because they didn't get the opportunity, but people didn't keep in contact and didn't show their passion the way, that he saw and what my passion was. So I think that's great. Spring GR is doing those types of things. So and Start Garden.
SCORE does the same thing. It's just a bunch of business entrepreneurs who have retired or maybe not working as actively. And SCORE is globally,
Yep.
just in the United States. So definitely look up SCORE. And SBDC, Small Business Development Chamber, same thing. So if you don't have a Spring GR near you or a Start Gardening near you, I mean, like, use those resources too. Don't be scared to ask for help.
Can I ask, I guess now, how did you find Spring GR or Start Garden?
SCORE. I went to SCORE. They set me up with a business coach, and while talking, he's like, "Hey, have you reached out to these ones?" I'm like, "No, I didn't even know they existed."
Great.
And,
so
yep.
if you have a small business and you're already going, if you're looking to start up a small business, right, go to SCORE. Hopefully they'll get you a business coach, and right, they'll lead you into any of the areas that you're in and get you the guidance that you need to be successful in this entrepreneur game, is what I call it, right? I mean, we all have an end goal, and we want to see you guys succeed and get there.
Yep.
All right, well, we've gone about an hour and 20 now, so I think this is a good spot to wrap it up. Please, if you have questions, reach out to us. We share this every week on Facebook. We share it on YouTube. If something you have a question on, bring it up. We'd love to talk about it on another episode. If you have questions about this one, by all means, reach out to us, because obviously, we have a little bit of experience starting businesses here, and at least what it takes to start a business here. Nick's always reminding everybody, give us a little subscribe there, give us a like, share the link. Anything you can do to help spread the word, because, we're like the organizations Dawn has been speaking about. We're just trying to help.
Well, if you can't find the answers, just like, you didn't know the answers right away for the guy in Australia needing credit card, I'm sure that you guys will either figure it out or ask somebody that can help.
Yep.
So don't be scared to ask your questions. If David and Nick can't figure it out, I'm sure they will do everything they can to help you figure it out.
Always the same. That's what we started this for, was to help other people, and that's what we're going to continue to do forever. I can't guarantee that we're going to have YouTube and Facebook forever, but we're going to, even in our daily life, we're going to help, right? David and I are natural born coaches and leaders. As I said, we've coached together, and it's a great pairing. So we love the passion, and we love the feedback from you guys. So as David said, like, subscribe, share, please tell your friends, because you know what? Even if you're not looking to start a business, but you watch this video, you might know somebody that's looking to start a business. I have a 4-year-old who I might sit in front of the computer later on and be like, hey, this is how you start a business. I talked about it at one point in my life. I don't need to tell you twice. Right there, we talked about this before. There might be a 16-year-old who's in the lawn.
You've dialed in to Bucks and Brews. You might hear something you can use, like tips on your cash or tips on the suds. You're gonna want to use the smarts of these stuff, cause they know the brews, and they know the box, and they know they can't help the stubborn fucks. So listen up, cause shit's not funny, and save yourself some beer money. Bucks and Brews.
Bucks and
Bucks
Brews.
and Brews.
Bucks and Brews.